This is Vortex. Welcome to the Motocross Vault.
Hello, this is Tony Blazer back with another video here for the Motocross Vault. And what I'm doing this one is run down my picks for the 10 best looking Kawasaki motocross bikes of all time. Now, I've done a couple of these lists, one for Honda, one for KTM, Yamaha, and Suzuki. You can find them here on the channel. I've also done a rundown for PulpMX.com, the website I write for with Steve Mathis. And in those, I made these picks, and then Mathis added his thoughts onto whether or not they were brilliant or idiotic. Typically, he has the thought that it's more the latter than the former, but bench racing being what it is, we all have our own opinions. I find that I've changed my mind many times over the years. Taste is a fickle thing, and as times have changed, I've some of the older bikes that I hated when they came out were new. I thought have kind of grown on me. Some of the ones I liked when they came out have kind of worn out their welcome. So it's always a fluid thing, but at this point in time, these are the 10 that I agonized over as to what would be the best for my choices, at least anyway. If you feel free to leave in the comment section your own thoughts. If I missed a bike, if you think I was crazy, let me know. You can also hit me up on Twitter and Instagram. I'll definitely read the responses there. If you could subscribe to the channel, I'd really appreciate it. Ding that little bell to get notified when we put up a new video. And to share it out on social media, I would appreciate that as well. Help the channel grow. So, in any case, here are my picks for the 10 best-looking Kawasaki motocross bikes of all time. All right, first up in 10th place, we have the 1996 KX250. Now, this is another one of those motorcycles that I really did not like the looks of when it came out in '96. Much like the '95 CRs, the '92 Suzukis, many motorcycles over the years. It was such a bold look, such a bold decision that year. I just couldn't get my mind wrapped around it. It was particularly egregious on the KX500, if you ask me, with the older body style. It just didn't really work. The purple tank and stuff was just a strange look. I mean, purple was all the rage in the early to mid 90s. All the brands, all five of them had purple this, purple that, purple accents. KTM even had like butterscotch on purple. That's another motorcycle I picked that was a really wacky looking one when it came out. This was a strange design. Like I said, I hated it in '96. I'm like, what in the hell are these people thinking? But it's one of these motorcycles that I've kind of grown to like over time. Now, again, I appreciate it for its boldness. Maybe it's not fair to give it a place on the list as the most beautiful, but it's certainly one of the most interesting. And I know a lot of people really like it. And it's one of those things that has kind of grown on me. I do think it looks a little better here, like on the KX80 with the fork boots and stuff. It actually looks pretty decent on this bike. The main thing I have a problem with, I think, is the purple fork guards is just maybe a little too much. The tank shroud thing, it doesn't look as bad on the 250 as it does on the 500. It actually kind of goes with it. But overall, it's a bold choice, one that you kind of love it or hate it. Again, one that I hated, but again, I've kind of grown to enjoy. Now I do like it. It's cool in a kind of kitschy 90s way. Sure, this was probably going to be the most polarizing choice on the list in terms of whether it should be included or not. But in the end, I decided and angsted over this and decided to put it on the list in the 10th position. In 9th place, I have a machine that I think will be a little less controversial, the 1985 Kawasaki KX500. Now, for my money, this is the first really good-looking machine Kawasaki ever built. Like I said, the 70s ones, some of them were pretty nice. The 76, not a bad-looking motorcycle. The 78, 79s, they're okay. The early 80s ones were really kind of a little too goofy for my taste. When they went with the whole gigantic rear number plate deal was not a great look, and I wasn't a huge fan of all the gold accents. I don't mind gold. In fact, I quite like gold accents in general, but in the early 80s, Kawasaki went gold crazy and stuck gold on everything from the dog bone linkage here to the swing arm. It was a little bit much. Now, in 84, they kind of toned things down and brought a little attractiveness to the 125 class with the KX 125. I debated putting this one on the list, the 84 here, but in the end, I don't really like that uni radiator look. I really prefer the looks of the 85 to it, so I went with the 85, 250, and 500. Now, as far as the 500, 250 thing, there are pros and cons to both. In the end, I think I would rate the 500 slightly above just because I like the looks of this really cool pipe that snakes around the bodywork. Interestingly, Mathis did not like that. It's one of the things he picked on in our article on Pulp MX, but I think it looks cool personally. I always love the giant pipes on 500s. One of the things I like about two strokes is gigantic expansion chambers. The tank is a little smaller than the 250, but overall they're very similar looking bikes. Now this works replica, quote unquote, was all new this year. I like the looks of the logo on the seat a little better in 86. 86 they changed it, although the overall look is very similar. The rear disc brake's cool, but anyways, it's kind of a toss up. In the end, I thought this 85 was the better of the two. And definitely better looking than the 87. I actually had an 87 125. Didn't really love the looks of that. Some of the styling that bike was not the best. And the 88 and 89s, while not terrible looking bikes, I'm just not a giant fan of the giant snow shovel fender they went with in the back and the huge fenders on the front. Just kind of a chunky, overdone bike in my opinion. This 85 is a little more svelte. So that's what basically caused it to rank as the number 9 pick on my list of the top 10 Kawasaki's. In 8th place, we have the all-new for 1992 KX125. This bike, along with its 250 sibling, were all new in 92. The frame, bodywork, motor, everything was majorly revised. I loved the 90-91 design. In 90, when the new body style came out, I was like, holy crap, that thing's amazing. This bike I thought was a lot more conservative overall. They got rid of that cool aluminum bolt-on strut tower, because obviously the ones were cracking and breaking, probably with good reason, but this one wasn't as cool looking to me. I wasn't a big fan of the anodized blue forks. Thought that was kind of goofy at the time. But I think history has proven that this is a really good looking bike. Compared to the 93 and later ones, this is way understated. The graphics themselves are kind of low key. It's kind of cool the way they fade into the seat there. The bodywork looks really good. It's a good looking motorcycle. Both this and the 250 were good looking bikes. Great suspension these years. The motors were a little lackluster, but it's funny, in 93, when the 93 came out, I way preferred it to this. It had those crazy cartoon graphics, and it was much more colorful. But it was the 90s, and maybe I was caught up a little bit in that. But now the 93 to me is not nearly as attractive as this. Kind of a good-looking, understated, but iconic Kawasaki design. All these perimeter frames look cool. Good-looking motorcycle overall, for sure. In 7th place, we have the 1997 KX250. Now, this bike is very similar in appearance to the 96, as well as the 94, 95, even the 97, very similar, 98. All of these bikes basically look the same in terms of the bodywork, but the graphics are different. Now, what they did for 97 was tone the purple down significantly. As you can see, there's still plenty of purple. Purple was all the rage still in the mid-90s. So they had the purple seat, which actually I quite like, but they ditched the purple fork guards, which I did not like, and they put green shrouds back on it, which I think was an improvement. But as you can see, there's still plenty of purple in the graphics. I think it's a good-looking bike. Kawasaki, for some reason, from I think in 95 until maybe the year after this in 98, they had this strobed out checkered flag in the shroud. If you look at all those graphics, they have this flag motif in it. I don't know why they did that, but they did it for a while. I think it's good looking overall. This is a handsome bike. I actually ended up putting these 97 graphics on my 2001 KDX 200. I quite like them. Like I said, the purple in itself isn't bad, but I think it's much better as an accent than it is when it's the major color on the bike. And they did a good job in 97 here, toning it down just enough for it to really win me over. I think it's a good looking motorcycle. As I said, I really like the bodywork on all these. So all these bikes are good looking. I like the green frame. I think the green frame is probably preferable to the gray that they went with in the 2000s. I'm not sure where they got away from that. But in any case, good looking motorcycle and worthy of the 7th position on my list. In 6th place, we have the all-new for 1994 KX250. Now, this is a machine I have a huge soft spot for. I wanted one so badly in 1994. I actually had the chance to go to a demo day at Antietam Motocross, which was my local track back then, and they had a bunch of these 94 models out there. At the time, I was riding a Honda CR250, and I rode this 94, and I could not believe how much better the suspension was than my bike. It was like a magic carpet compared to the Honda, which would just beat you to death. This bike was awesome. The motor I don't think was quite as powerful as my CR, but it was smooth and easy to ride. I did notice it pinged a little bit, but I think there was a problem with a lot of these Cowies, but I thought the bike was gorgeous. I love this all-new graphics, kind of confetti look, super colorful. Love the colors, love the purple and the red and the yellow and everything that's in it. The 125 and the 250 were new this year. We have Rich Taylor here chilling with one, with both bikes for Kawasaki's promo stuff. And I just think it was a great looking motorcycle. Like I said, all these bikes in the mid 90s, I love the bodywork on all of them. To me, this is the best looking of all of them. The 94 graphics are really, really, they're kind of crazy by today's standards, very 90s, but I like the purple with the pink accents. I like the little green that goes into the side panel. Just love the overall look of this bike. It's just a great looking machine. And of course, the fact that I wanted one so bad back in '94, never ended up getting it, but I so wanted it. Probably, puts this a little bit above the other in my mind, but they're all pretty good looking machines. I was actually really, really close to putting this a little higher on the list. Maybe I should have, but anyways, it's hard to say. Like I said, you're splitting hairs here. It's kind of arbitrary. I think any of these bikes in my top 10, you could shuffle most of the order of them, but for me, at least, this is the best looking of the 90s KXs. In fifth place, we have the 2006 KX250. Now, this is a bike I did actually have. Unlike the 94, I actually was able to acquire one of these. It was a bike that had some good points and bad points. Really fast motorcycle. I always thought the handling was a little strange, and the clutch was just absolute garbage. I ended up putting a Magura hydraulic clutch on mine because it was so cranky. The bike itself, though, was a good motor, and like I said, it was really fast. It was a rocket. I like the looks of this bike. This 2006 look mimics the look of the factory bikes in '05, which I thought were really good looking. In general, I think I prefer the black seat. When I had mine, I took this green one off and put a black seat like James's bike, and I think it looks better that way. The bike does have a few little quirks. The side panel design I always thought was a little peculiar on these, and the rear fender stuck up at a weird angle. If the bike is sitting on with both wheels on the ground, the rear fender sticks up pretty strongly up. The factory bikes, you notice it less because, of course, most of them, Bubba's, I think, had a cut down subframe and different links. If you put a different link on the bike, it helped the handling too. It had kind of a stink bug thing, so the ass was always kind of high and the front end was low, so kind of a strange looking bike in that way, and handling as well. Now, a couple things I loved about this: the all green motif is a nice look. The graphics are simple. They're classic. I like the looks overall of the graphic design. It also has some really cool, like kind of bronzed bits. It look like they have that Cerakote finish. I love that Kawasaki was doing this on the clutch cover, the clamps, and the shock body. I will say though that stuff didn't last worth a damn. It immediately your boots would scratch it right off. They were pretty pretty not very durable. It kind of sucked because it looked awesome when the bike was new, but got beat looking pretty quick. Overall, though, I think it's a pretty good-looking motorcycle. It certainly doesn't hurt that it was one of the last ones of the KX250s. If they'd come out with an all-new 250 two-stroke with an alloy frame and everything in 2006 like they did with the four-strokes, I think this bike would probably fall down the list quite a bit. But the fact that it's one of the last of its breed kind of gives it a little special meaning to a lot of people, including myself. So like it's a toss-up to me whether this is better looking than the 94. I kind of went back and forth, but in any case, I ended up landing on the 5th spot on my list. In 4th place, we have the all-new for 2006 KX250F. Now, this is the first year for Kawasaki's own 250F. They did have a model that came out in 2004, but that was a bike that they had partnered with Suzuki to build. That bike, I think, is kind of a weird-looking combination of old and new. Has the old-style steel perimeter frame on it and some kind of weird bodywork that doesn't really work that well. I don't think the bike was that great looking. Performance was mediocre. Had some massive reliability issues, and I don't think either Suzuki or Kawasaki was too happy with the way things turned out, so they ended up going their separate ways. And this is the first year where Kawasaki had done their own clean sheet design. This is the first year for the alloy frame. As you can see, it's a very Honda-esque design. Looks very similar to what you have found on a CRF. They had tried some earlier versions with alloy frames with some different configurations, but they had some reliability issues, and it seems like most of the Japanese have kind of stuck to this design. I guess Yamaha being the only holdout, they've kind of gone their own way on that. I do think it looks great. I prefer the looks of this frame to most of the steel ones. It's just a clean looking design in general. I think this bodywork, I think, is by far the best of the Kawasaki four-strokes for several years to come. Later versions were kind of fussy to my eye. I didn't really care for them that much. I think they really did a great job this first time out and got it right. This bodywork works with these graphics really well. You can see this overall aesthetic is shared somewhat with the two-stroke, but the two-stroke, was a several-year-old design at that point, and you can tell the aesthetics were geared towards the all-new four-strokes. They're the future at this point, and the two-strokes were kind of getting ready to go away. So it's not surprising that the overall look is, probably works a little better on this. I love the fact that they kept the that bronze Cerakote look on all the tidbits on the motor. The engine cases, clutch cover, ignition cover, and what have you. Have all of it, and the clamps as well. Shares that with a two-stroke. Good look. Like I said, I thought it gave it that little bit of a factory cachet look, even if it didn't last very long if you had rode the bike actually instead of just looking at it in your garage. Really good looking motorcycle, and like I said, my favorite of the four strokes for quite a few years to come, and certainly one of the best Kawasaki designs of this era. All right, we're ready to enter the home stretch here with my number 3 pick, the 2003 Kawasaki KX250. Now, this was an all-new design in 2003. This was the first year for this bodywork. This bodywork would basically carry the KX250 until its eventual retirement in 2007. The motor itself was not that great this year. This first year it was kind of slow. Later ones actually had much better performance, but this 2003 one is, at least in my opinion, the best looking of all of them. I love the graphics this year. You'll notice there's a really cool kind of a bronzy tint to the forks that give it a really works look. I love this color. I don't know why they only had this one year. It's beautiful in my opinion. And you'll notice that the graphics actually have that kind of a bronze built into the graphic design as well. It's into the little Kawasaki logo, also built into the like the logo on the swing arm there. Nice little accents that match it. This is the first year for that really cool bronze Cerakote look on the clutch cover, which as I said earlier, I love the looks of. I prefer the black seat here to the later green one that was like on the 06. Overall cleaner design, I think. The side panel still is a little fussy for my taste, but I think this motorcycle is a good looking bike for sure. With the factory graphics on it, I ended up putting the factory graphics for 03 on my 06 as well. I love the Chevy Trucks logo and stuff. I thought that was cool. And the flow green was really neat. But even the stock bike this year is pretty good looking. It might have been better looking if it had still had the green frame on it. I kind of was bummed when they went away from the green frame. But this bike still, in spite of that, is a good looking motorcycle. Doesn't have anything really weird about it in my opinion, other than maybe, like I said, that fussy side panel. Other than that, it's a really good looking bike. And one of my favorite Kawasaki's of all time. In second place, we have the 1990 Kawasaki KX250. Now, this is one that I had previously put at the top of my list in several of my rankings, and man, I was really close to doing it again. I was on the fence back and forth with whether this was my number 1 pick or not. If I look at it now objectively, this bike I just don't think is quite as attractive as the one I picked as number 1, but it's certainly more iconic. I still think it's a beautiful machine, and I think it deserves its ranking in a lot of ways because of how significant it was in terms of styling and basically how it kind of kicked off the crazy 90s stuff. This is the first motorcycle in 1990 to kind of bring out that cartoony look and some of the crazy colors with the pink on the seat, and it really was a very bold departure at the time from what Kawasaki was turning out there. If you look at an 89 KX250, it's a pretty stodgy, boring looking motorcycle. Basically looks like a KX500 did until the end. It's not an ugly motorcycle, I guess, but the big snow shovel fender and stuff was a bit much. This 1990 redesign was just a complete departure. It was so radical at the time. I just had to have one. I loved it so much. It was so cool. I had this. This was actually from an ad, and I had the ad on my wall, of course, as many, probably thousands of other kids did. The bike was just super cool. When I finally got a chance to ride one, it was, it felt kind of tall and big and kind of a strange motorcycle if you're used to riding something else. It had a different feel to it, but it sure did look amazing. It was rocket fast this year. Just a cool motorcycle. Now I think it's hard to pick this over a more modern bike with the alloy frame and stuff. It's just not quite as sleek a design, but if you take into account the year it was built, it really, really is a beautiful motorcycle. I love it. Like I said, I went back and forth. I may, a year from now, I may say, hey, that was a mistake to put it at number 2. But again, this is bench racing. It's not important. It's just my opinion. And in the end, I picked this over some other ones, but not quite at the top. Ranking it second is probably going to catch me some heat from Mathis, but overall, I think it wasn't quite able to edge out my number 1. All right, so here we are in first place as my pick of the best-looking Kawasaki KX of all time, the 2016 Kawasaki KX 450F. Now, as I've said previously, in general, four strokes are not my cup of tea in terms of aesthetics. At least I know mechanically on the track they're superior in most ways, but most of the time they look kind of big and clunky. But I think this thing is just a sexy, sexy machine. This was really the first Kawasaki that I can think of since maybe the 94 that I actually went to the dealership and said, holy criminy, I want this motorcycle. It was a good looking bike. I love the bodywork redesign this year. As I said, I really didn't care for any of the KX four strokes from 2006 going forward until this. The side panel designs were kind of weird. They went with a strange teardrop design somewhere, and they all run together. To be honest, none of them stood out in my mind. They're all kind of there's a sameness to them, and I just didn't care for any of them. This one actually reminds me, it kind of has a green Honda, which I mean as a compliment, kind of CRF like. I love the overall bodywork on this bike. I think it's just a great looking machine. The black seat with the little green accents. This is my favorite side panel design maybe of Kawasaki's ever used. I think it's just a really clean look. It's much less fussy than the weird stuff you see on KTM's and especially Husqvarna's these days. It actually fits numbers. I love the way the shroud design kind of goes down the body line of the frame and then integrates into the rear side plate. The muffler still looks like it comes off a Buick or something. It's huge, but that's four strokes, so what are you going to do? I'm not a huge fan of black wheels in general, but I think it works well on green bikes. For some reason, Kawasaki's with the black and green, the wheels actually don't look bad on it. I just think it's a good-looking motorcycle. Really great. The bling on the motor, I would prefer them to be maybe a different color than this green. It seems a little cheese ball, but overall, good-looking motorcycle in general. And the engine doesn't look terrible in this. It's a great-looking bike, and like I said, it's kind of tough to rate this above the KX in 1990 because it's such an iconic machine, but just taken objectively, I looked at them both, and it's just this 2016 is just a cleaner overall design. Some of that obviously is due to the modern technology built into it, but just a good look. They really knocked it out of the park, in my opinion. I actually like this 16 even better than the 20. For 2020, they added, they made all the plastic green on the KX250 because the 250 still uses this bodywork. I think this looks better with the white accents, and I much prefer this actually to the current KX450, which is, I don't care for this the new generation bodywork as much. I think they really hit the sweet spot here in 2016, and that's why I picked it as my #1 choice of the best looking Kawasaki motocross bike of all time. So there you have it, my picks for the best looking KXs of all time. I'm sure that some of you will agree with some of these. Probably some of you would disagree with some of them. Heck, half the time I'm already wanting to change the order. So it's one of those fun things where there's no right or wrong answer. If you do want to add your comments, please feel free to add your comments below in the comment section, or you can always hit me up on social media as well. I definitely read comments and respond when I can. If you've enjoyed this, please feel free to check out the accompanying article on pulpmx.com, where Mathis and I will be going down these as well, and he'll be adding his comments to mine. If you like this sort of thing, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Like I said, check out the other videos I've done. I did I did the Honda, Suzuki, KTM, and Yamaha, and a bunch of other bike reviews, and you'll find all kinds of stuff. And just as a reminder, if you're looking for my classic race reviews, make sure you check out the Motocross Race Vault, which is my sister channel where all those classic bike reviews are going to be going forward. So in the meantime, keep the rubber side down, and peace.